Welcome back to Grief Healing for Moms. My name is Fabiana Batista, and I am a mom who went through the unimaginable heartbreak of the death of my 4-month-old baby. Through the pain and the grief, I rediscovered joy, which is the reason I created this podcast, to be able to give moms that have lost children hope and let them know that there is healing and hope and happiness available to them at the end of this whole entire journey. With me here today is a mom who has gone through the loss of her young baby who died a few hours after being born. And her name is Ashley. Thank you so much, Ashley, for being here today and being so open and willing to tell your story so that together we can help reach other moms that may be going through a similar situation to what you went through, maybe what I've been through, and just so that together we can let them know that hope is available to them. They don't have to be broken forever. So thank you so much for being open to telling your story. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for creating the platform.
Oh, yeah. You're all very welcome. So before we get into your story, what are you hoping to, when you tell your story today, what are you hoping to get out to the viewers?
I think that it's so important that people understand this is not a taboo subject. I think we need to get more comfortable talking about this so it doesn't shock you every time you hear a story. And I think in sharing my story, not only did I create a community of like-minded women, but I found a lot of comfort in healing when people reached out to me and said something similar happened, but they were too afraid to share and they suffered in silence. And I just don't think anyone deserves to go through that.
Definitely. Yeah, I feel like it's a topic that is not really talked about often,
Not at all.
or if at all.
Right.
And maybe more so now in this day and age, which everything is talked about,
Yeah.
right? But that's still a very sensitive subject. And I feel like there's not enough support for moms that have lost a child in some way, shape, or form, because some people think, oh well, it's a miscarriage. Well, a miscarriage, you still, as a mom, you're still carrying that baby. It's still your baby.
Correct.
And that miscarriage still reflects as a loss for us. Like, our body doesn't know the
Absolutely.
difference of, okay, well, it couldn't be born full term.
Yeah.
Or like some of the other moms that we've had in the podcast, which were like a 17-year-old that passed away. So that's why I felt it was so important to create this podcast, and I'm hopeful that hopefully there's a mom out there that says, "Oh man, I went through the same situation as her. How is she happy again? Like, I don't think I could be happy again."
Yeah.
So tell us about your story and tell us about your little angel James.
Of course. And I think to your point, when people tried to offer me different support mechanisms or support materials, there's not a support group on the internet for exactly what I went through. So I was going to different support groups and really feeling like I just didn't fit in. And I thought to myself, in this day and age, how is that possible? How do people not know what to say? Right. How is the most common used term, everything happens for a reason? Yeah, exactly. More than 50% of people said that to me. And what do you say back to that?
I don't even have the words right now.
Yeah, what do you say back to that? It's interesting.
And even if even if that's true, yes, it happened for a reason. Okay, yes, but I still need to heal from that whatever
Correct.
happened for a reason episode.
Right.
So tell us about James and tell us about your story, and I do pray that today we can honor James and my baby Dex by telling their story. No, not great yet. And I take this opportunity of telling their story as a way to, for me, it's a way to honor them.
Of course.
Because they're our little angels now, that doesn't make it any less painful. But if we can honor them, and I'm sure they're here with us today, happy that we're sharing their name and their story and how everything happened.
Oh, absolutely. And it's definitely happy tears, and I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy to share. James was my first pregnancy, and everything was perfect. Blood work, scans. I had zero complaints, zero morning sickness. And I was just at work one day, didn't feel right, and went to the hospital, and my water broke in the car.
On the way while you were
Yes.
driving yourself
Yeah.
to the hospital?
I was with my office manager and just went to the hospital. And by the time they wheeled me upstairs, like all the fluid was pretty much out, but he was completely alive. Everything was great. And
How many months were you?
I was 21 weeks.
Oh, so a little over about 5 months.
Yeah, a little over 5 months. It was like 21 and 5, so almost 5.5.
Okay.
And it was just a waiting game, according to the doctors. I was too early for a C-section, and they said you can basically pray that you stay here for the next month or two, and when he wants to come out, he comes out. Because I was still fine. His heart was great. He was not in distress, and supposedly this is actually a common thing, which I had never heard about. And I can tell by the look on your face, you're surprised too.
I didn't know.
Yeah. So he was great.
But the baby can still be in there even though the water broke?
Yeah.
And he can still be fine?
Yes.
I mean, I'm sorry. I
No,
don't know.
I didn't
Maybe
know it
this is a
either.
stupid question, but I really
No,
didn't.
nothing. There's no stupid question. I didn't know it either. And for 2 days, he was fine.
Inside your belly? Mm-hmm. Okay.
I was in the hospital, and then I started cramping and just went into labor.
2 days later,
Yeah.
after you got into the hospital.
Yep. Yeah.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that it could be. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, some women are in labor for
Right.
hours on end, I guess, and their water's already broken. Yeah, that's true. I didn't think about it.
And they said that you could be here for days or you could be here for weeks. We don't know. So the hope was he stays inside as long as possible. And his lungs weren't developed enough to survive.
What emotions did you experience while, you went to the hospital, your water breaks, you're 5.5 months pregnant, and the doctor's telling you this? Like, what does that feel like?
You're just in a fog. You don't feel anything. You just can't process. And I think you just go into almost a shock. And it's almost like an out-of-body experience. And you just don't know what to say. You don't know what to think. And you have a lot of doctors and specialists coming in, asking you all types of questions, just trying to figure out what went wrong. And a bunch of doctors did come in, and they very politely offered, I don't remember the name, but there were some drugs. And they said, we can give you these pills and it will potentially help him live, but we don't know what his life would look like. And then they said, you have to make that decision. Do you want to take the pills or do you want to see what happens naturally?
What does that mean? What his life would look like?
Because his lungs weren't fully developed. They don't know if they would ever develop.
Okay. So not necessarily because of the pills, but
Correct.
you're just saying if he was born now, we don't know what that would look like for his health.
Correct.
Okay. Mm-hmm. That must have been heart crushing.
Oh, absolutely. And I think you lean on faith and you do what you think is best.
So what did you decide when they offered you the pills?
We decided not to. And we said, let's leave it in God's hands.
And then what happened?
And then I went into labor.
Oh, and then after that you went into labor. That's when you started having the cramps?
Yes.
And then you delivered him naturally?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Okay. And then what happened?
And then he just passed away.
I'm sorry, Ashley. No, I know. Did you get to hold him? And how long was he alive before he stopped breathing?
Not very long. And it was so interesting because they bring you, they literally call it a chiller.
A chiller?
Yes.
What is
And it is a bassinet that is basically frozen on the bottom.
okay.
And he's allowed to stay with you if you're not ready to let him go. So I think I was so exhausted that I just fell asleep with him next to me.
Like holding him or
Yeah.
in the bassinet?
Yeah. And then they woke me up and they said, oh, you need to put him in the bassinet. It's been too long because I was just so exhausted.
Right. Well,
I
you
was
have been
so
there for a
exhausted.
few days too.
Yeah. I was exhausted. And then I went home. I didn't feel right and had to go back for a DNC because all of the placenta didn't come out.
Oh,
So I was in the hospital for quite some time.
wow.
Yeah, it was over a week.
After you went back.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
Mm-hmm.
Um, how was, I mean, I assume your husband was there with you.
Yes.
So what was that like for him?
My husband is a former first responder. And
Mine.
yes. And after he was also an attorney. So he retired a few years ago and he's an attorney now. We both run the law firm together. And it was tough because we have a lot of employees that work for us. And you say to yourself, I need to heal. I need to help my wife, but I also have employees to take care of. I also have clients that are calling me. And I think, thank goodness for his first responder background because he knew how to get through that. He knew how to not break down and support me
Yeah.
and help, for lack of a better term, manage the situation.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like first responders are
They
great
have a
at
gift.
oh, that training. I feel like that should be
Yeah.
taught in schools, like that first responder training where you're just, the house can be burning down, but you're just focused on, okay, what do I need to do? Who needs to be saved? And then just follow the guidelines, follow the steps, do what you need to do, save people, keep moving. Chaos is going, house burning.
Yeah.
No, I don't see that. I just keep moving.
Yeah. He was in senior management, so he definitely dealt with some things.
So what would you say, what do you think was like your lowest point? And what helped you navigate out of
Sure.
that lowest point?
I think my lowest point was the week in between when he passed and then when I shared publicly that he passed. So he passed on May 15th, but it was approximately 7 days later that I actually made a post on social media.
Right.
And it was probably the best thing I ever did for myself.
Really?
The best. I can't speak for anybody else, but if you're inclined to go through something tragic and share, highly recommend it. Because what I found was so many friends, so many people that I talk to all the time, I've been in their life for years, experienced something similar and chose not to share it. So my DMs were flooded, my texts were flooded with people supporting me in wonderful, beautiful ways. And it was very healing.
Oh,
It was almost like therapy in itself.
because of the outpour
Yes.
of people reaching out.
Yes.
That's beautiful. Did you feel before in that week? Did you feel like what did you feel? Did you feel alone? What was that like for you? Because I know everyone has their own journey and everyone experiences maybe some of the same emotions, but like in different order.
Right. I just felt completely like, WTF? Like, what just happened? Like, I couldn't process.
Was his room already set up in the house and stuff, or
No, not yet.
so when you got back home at least?
Right. We had planned the baby shower. Things had to be returned. And I'm sure it was so difficult for everybody else in my life too, because I think they don't know what to say. They don't know what to do.
Right. Yeah, I think that's one of the hardest things, and it's hard on our end because people don't know like how to approach
Yes.
you about it as
Yes.
the mom, but then at the same time, I'm sure it's awkward for them too because they don't know how to be there to support you.
It's extremely awkward. And there's two types of responses. You have, let me know what I can do, which is something, in my opinion, you should never say,
Okay.
because you don't know how to ask for help when you're just so frozen. So a lot of people would text and say, sending you a hug. When you want to go out for coffee, let me know. They gave me something specific to respond to rather than an open-ended answer, because sometimes that can feel so overwhelming.
Right. Yeah,
Or,
exactly.
hey, just checking in. I want you to know I'm thinking of you.
Okay.
Something that you also don't need to respond to.
Right. Yeah, they're not asking you like a question of what do you need?
Correct.
It's just more like I'm here for you. That's a good point. Yeah. That's a good I feel like that's a good word of advice for, people that are, if you don't know how to support a mom that has grieved, that's Ashley makes a great point, which is just send a statement versus a question, right? Like, I'm thinking of you. I have you in my prayers. Let me know when you want to go out for coffee. I'm here if you need me, versus let me know what I can do for you, or what do you need help with? Maybe not so much that, but just more of like a statement. So you said the lowest point was that week from when you went to the hospital. I mean, from when you left the hospital and
Right.
getting home, then you posted it on social media, and that's what helped you like start to get out of it. That sense of like community and that you can relate to other people, or I mean, that other people had experienced a similar situation to yours.
Yes.
But did they share like how they made it through, or like what helped them overcome
No, and
their
that
loss?
was the most interesting part. Um, because he was born, because he wasn't considered a miscarriage,
Right.
there was technically no support groups. Because really, if you look at what happened to James, he was perfect by all means. His lungs just weren't fully developed to live outside the womb. He's in like this gray area. So there's no support group, because what I went through is less than 1% of people.
Oh wow.
There was no infection. There was no stress. I was literally at my appointment the day before and everything was fine.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So there's still just no explanations.
What do you think? Like, what role did your faith play in your journey? Like your
Oh, a
your
huge
your
role.
relationship with God, or what? How did that help you?
I actually think my husband helped the most. My husband definitely grew up in the Catholic Church. His mom worked in the Catholic Church, my mother-in-law, and my brother-in-law is a deacon.
Oh,
He actually did the service when we buried James. It was super emotional for him, and I know for the whole family. But we just had to trust God that He had a better plan, and we believe that.
did you guys ever like question?
Absolutely. I
What was
think
that
you'll
like?
always question. I don't think that ever goes away. And I think it's okay to say that. And I think a lot of people are scared to talk about taboo things. I think people don't know what to say.
But you're talking about questioning God.
Yeah, absolutely. In your grief, you go through all the stages. Why did this happen to me? What is the reason for this? You're always trying to rationalize.
Right. Yeah. Something that when when my baby Dex passed, one of the things that I tried not to do and was ask why. Because so years prior, my dad passed away when I was 15. And the main thing I remember was like going into such a dark place. And the main thing I remember was just asking why God? And I got very angry at God. I got very far away from God. And for a period of like 7 years, it was like this tormenting dark hole that I was in where I would cry every single night. I was far away from God. I got so angry at God for allowing this to happen to me that I kept asking, why did you do this? Why did this have to happen? Why? And so fast forwarding to like when Dex passed, that's one of the things that I wanted to stay away from was asking why. And my husband, Danny, said, he even told me, he's like, even if you get an answer to your why, is never going to be enough. It's never going to be enough.
Yeah.
So don't ask why. Because if you get the why, you're either going to be disappointed at the reason. It's never going to be good enough for you for taking your loved one, your child, or for your child having to have passed. Mm-hmm. So don't ask why. Just trust, like you said, just trust that this is, that God is doing this for a reason. Maybe he just had to go, or actually something that he said, which helped me a lot too, was what if God is preventing it? What if this had to happen because God is protecting you from something worse happening? Like, what if Dex had to have child cancer or something that you cannot live with? You know what I mean? Like, what if he would have a tragic accident? Or he gave me like the worst case scenarios, and that was like a huge thing. Like that, even to this day, where I'm like, I wonder why, and I'm like, no, don't ask why. I tried not to ask why, because then I'll go into like that rabbit hole, which leads to a dark place. But
I think we're all there, and I think it's okay to say that, and I think it's okay to admit that, and I think everybody wants to have this picture perfect image of what it's supposed to look like, and everybody wants to have, I'm going to air quote and say, the success story, and I came out of it, but it's okay to say you were in the thick of it and it sucked. Yeah. And I don't think enough people do that.
Yeah, and I always talk about the fork in the road, which if you think of it like that, it's just once you're in a situation like that where you're not expecting to lose, for your child to die,
right?
Or you're in this situation, and that applies to any grieving or any loss. You're in this fork in the road where it's like, all right, well, I'm completely broken. I'm questioning God. I'm questioning my life. I'm questioning everything. I don't know if I'm ever going to be a whole person again, or if I'm ever going to feel normal, whatever normal is for you, right? So there's this fork where it's almost like we have to make a decision of, all right, am I going to question everything? Am I going to get away from God? Am I going to get angry at God and why I can't believe you allowed this to happen to me? Or am I going to just lean into him and say, I'm not really sure why the heck you had to do this or why you had to take him.
Right.
But I'm going to trust that an answer will come, or I'm just going to be able to heal from this. And then at that point, I feel like making that decision very early on is crucial, because then it allows for healing in a way that's healthy healing, not, so there's healthy healing or grieving, and then there's whatever the other stuff is, which is not.
1,000,000%. And the part we didn't talk about, which was probably the most interesting dynamic to all of this, is my husband was in the middle of a political race. He was running for a sheriff of Miami-Dade County. So it became very public. One of the other people running against him made public comments about it. There was a newspaper story written about it. It was very interesting, and I didn't expect that dynamic. I didn't expect how cruel people can be and how loose they can be with their words.
Wow. And all of that for a political race.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a tough one. Because it's like, come on, man. Your kid just died. Yeah. Like, even if it's a political race, it is what it is. That's secondary at this point to your
Correct.
child dying.
Yep.
I mean,
It was definitely interesting. And I think the most, what I will call fascinating aspects is I'm very involved in the community and I was very open about what happened. And there were other women that were in different foundations with me who were just so cruel.
to you?
Yes. And they were mothers in terms of the demands they placed on me. For example, I won't name anybody, of course, but there was a quote, I'm going to air quote, assignment that I was given. And the week of my due date, I got the flu, I got sick, I was super emotional. It was, my body detoxing. And I had a assignment that probably would have taken 5 minutes to do, but I could not bring myself to do it. I had a fever, I was sick, and she chastised me in a group chat. She brought it up multiple times thereafter, let everyone know I didn't do the assignment. And I just thought to myself, I didn't even know how to respond. I'm still speechless about it. So you have people at both ends of the spectrum. And I think the thing you can do is realize that is a projection of how they feel.
Yeah.
You can't take that personally.
Right.
And
It just sucks that as you're grieving, you're
Yes.
having to go through dealing with
correct.
that.
Right.
Well, well, I'm sorry you had to go through that.
Thank you.
I'm sure, and then I'm sure having gone through your loss, like that also shows you who's for you and
Yes.
who's not for you. And sometimes it's a big surprise.
Yes. And I think my best friend at the time, right after James passed, she said to me, Ashley, mentally prepare yourself. All of your relationships are going to change. And I didn't know what she meant. And I know every person who's experienced, a deep loss like this will agree. People treat you differently.
Or you change also. We change.
Correct.
And we change
Yes.
just in general. Not necessarily that we change for the good or the bad.
Yes.
We just change.
Yes,
But if we didn't change,
exactly.
then what was it?
Yeah.
Why did we go through all of that suffering and heartbreak and being completely broken and rebuilt to then be the same person?
Correct. And I think people don't know how to handle that.
100%. What other resources? So you said you leaned on God.
Did.
What other? And of course, your husband was a key part of
The main part.
The main part of your of your healing.
Yes.
So what other resources or people or practices, like what else helped you through to get out of that, to start, I guess, healing?
I tried everything.
What did you try?
I went to support groups. I wrote to people on Instagram. I tried different types of therapies. I ate different foods. Anything that I could try, I did, because I wanted to see what I identified with. I wanted to see what helped me.
You were testing stuff out.
Yes.
And I've told people that before, and they look at me like I'm crazy.
No.
Like I'm like, just go explore things.
Yes,
go
you need to.
explore. I don't know. Explore going to church. Explore going
Yes.
meditate. Explore running. Explore. I don't know. Explore things. Like explore
Yes.
different practices.
Yes.
You never know what you're gonna identify with.
Yes.
Well, that's pretty cool that you did that.
I did.
What stuck? Which one out of everything that you tried? What worked?
Something that I believe I would refer to as called family constellation therapy.
Family constellation? Oh,
Yes.
okay, I haven't heard about this one. Okay, go ahead, go on. Do tell. Maybe I'll
Yes.
try it.
I'm not a talk therapy person. I feel like as women, we can talk all day long, but sometimes that doesn't actually help or heal. You just end up in the same cycle over and over and over again. Repeating the same patterns, repeating the same conversations, but you don't actually get anywhere. And I would equate one session with a family constellation therapist as like 100 sessions of talk therapy.
Okay.
because we don't realize that we are a product of how we were brought up. We're a product of all these ingrained thoughts that we have about ourselves.
True.
And getting to that deeper level fixes everything else that happened. So I didn't necessarily need to go to therapy about what happened with James. I needed to go to therapy to learn how to deal with it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oof. Okay.
Because things are going to happen, and how you respond to it is dictates every part of your life.
Right. So what is that therapy? I know nothing of this therapy. Now I'm curious. I'm like, I want to know what is this like? Is it like a meditation? Is it like hypnosis? Like what's it like? If you don't mind sharing.
Absolutely. The best way to describe it is you need to be very, very open. You know how sometimes, let's say you'll be at a restaurant and you're eating and the waiter comes up and you're not really done, but you want to be polite. And when he says, "Can I take that plate?" you say yes, even though you really don't want to, but you just do it to be polite.
No, I slap his hand. I'm like, don't touch my food.
Well,
No, I'm just kidding.
then you're ready for it. You need to be able to be honest about your thoughts, and you need to be able to be honest about all the things, for lack of a better term, and then you can really dig deep.
But is it like a type of therapy where you're talking to someone, or is it more
Yes.
like you're meditating your way
No,
through it?
you're talking to someone.
Okay.
It's very deep work. Like, for example, something could have happened to you 10 years ago that really gave you so much anxiety because you stuffed it down and you didn't know how to process in a healthy way.
Okay.
So for me, trying all the things was figuring out how I could get through, because I had two options. Part of the reason I'm married to my husband, we're both the same. You know, we're in the middle of a sheriff's race. We just lost our son. We have a decently sized law firm, and we have salaries. We have clients, and being able to be healthy enough to navigate all of that and not let it all fall apart, it's a lot, and it takes a lot of work.
It does. It does. No, and then the most important part is like, yeah, you can. So many people would, let's say, keep themselves busy
Yes.
to not face the grief and the
Yes.
sorrow and the hurt, right? But then that's not healing.
Right. And I
That's
think a
just
lot of
masking it
men
and,
do
like,
that.
sweeping stuff under the rug.
Yes.
And then eventually that rug is gonna blow up
Yes.
in your face.
It is. And I think the biggest lesson I also learned was I cannot expect my husband, my sister, my friends, or my coworkers to heal in the same way. And I think you also have to remember that people who love you are hurting too. So sometimes you get so wrapped up in this happened to me, you also have to be able to give, like, you know, your aunt a hug, because everyone is grieving what that life looked like for the family too.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah. You're making me think about, how that affected.
It affects everybody.
Yeah.
To this day, there are people.
Grandparents and
I ran into somebody 2 weeks ago that gave me a hug and started crying. Yes,
why? Because
she was so sad about what I went through. And what also happens is when someone in your circle goes through a tragic event, they're very, very sad. But they're also sad because they're forced to feel what maybe they've suppressed.
okay, that makes sense. When you did the family constellation,
Yeah,
like
family
the stars?
constellations.
Constellation, like the stars.
Yes,
Okay, okay. So when you did that, was it just you or your husband joined?
it was just me.
Okay.
And I think, we all have this notion that we have to heal and we have to go to therapy. And we also have to accept that our journey is our own.
Yeah.
I cannot say my husband's bad because he didn't go to therapy with me. That doesn't exist. You have to give people space to heal how they want to heal, what works for them. For me, every time I felt like crying, I cried. No matter if it was in the supermarket or in my car or on a Zoom with a client. If that emotion came up, I felt it. And that allowed me to process rather than burying it, rather than,
Yes.
suppressing.
And it's crazy because every mom that I've ever spoken about this says the same exact thing. And that was huge for me. Like the whole just let it out, let it rip. If you feel like
Yes.
crying, pull over,
Yes.
let it out. Because if we're, as women, we want to be so strong and we want to just, I don't need to cry because I'm a strong woman. It's like, yeah, you can be a strong woman. You can cry at the same time and
Right.
reset. It's like it's a reset. Just cry hard, let it out in that moment. And I guarantee you're going to feel so much better versus carrying that knot in your throat that doesn't go away. And then now it comes up every 5 minutes and you're just holding it. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to cry. Nope, I'm not going to cry. And then it just lasts days. Whereas if you just cry hard and you give it that cry and you just let the emotion pass
Right.
through you, then you allow for the hurt to come out so that the healing can begin to start.
1,000,000%.
Right?
And I realized I almost turned into an educator without realizing it, because everybody always wanted to console me about what they thought happened. And I would constantly have to remind people, my body doesn't know my baby died. So
Oh my God.
you still have all the postpartum symptoms. You still have milk that comes in, and you gave birth. So you're dealing with all of the postpartum things, and then having to manage the people around you that you also have to educate because they don't know what you're going through. And if you don't tell people what you're going through, you also can't expect them to react properly.
Oh my gosh. I know you talked about your husband being the main character
Yes.
of the support group. So, what would you say to maybe a mom that went through a similar situation to yours and they're married? What would you say is the best way for the husband to support the wife? Like, what are some do's and don'ts, let's say, for the husbands? 'Cause maybe the husbands are, it's hard.
Right.
Yes, they lost a child also, but we're the moms.
Right.
Like we're the ones that felt the baby.
Yes.
We felt the kicks. We have
Yes.
a different type of connection than the dads do. I'm not saying it's
just different.
not hard for them, but it's just totally different. I feel like for a mom is that much harder. But the man's role is so important and so key in how we heal.
Yes.
So what would you say to a mom or maybe to the husband of like how to support his wife in a situation like this?
I think the biggest piece of advice, and it's a do and a don't at the same time, I think you need to let go of the expectation of what you think it should be. And I think you should let it happen naturally.
Which part?
All the healing, all of the things. Because I think you want to say, okay, X, Y, and Z has to happen in order for us to heal as a couple. And you need to let go of that because he's going to have his process. You're going to have your own, and then you're going to have one together.
Okay. So what are some things that maybe your husband did that worked for you guys, that worked, that helped you to be able to heal? Or maybe some things where you're like, no, I didn't, I would stay away from this, or maybe try this, like what works for you?
Yeah. Well,
Or for you guys as a married couple?
Yeah, we're very in sync. We live together, we work together. So for me, it was very easy in terms of he let me feel all the feelings. He was very supportive. I don't have a don't because he was fabulous. Like there were days where, he was breaking down and I wasn't. So I supported him and vice versa.
Yeah, I think in actually the first episode of the podcast, my first guest was actually my husband Danny, because I wanted him to number one help me tell the story of our baby's passing, but also to give that manly advice, I guess. And one of the things that my husband did when our baby passed, he said, he let me know that he was just being a supportive role. Like, yes, he did break down, which was important because then I saw that he was also hurting. He wasn't just trying to be tough all the time.
Right.
But then he also said, just cry. Whenever you need to cry, cry. And it's not that the husband gives you permission, but it's almost like that it's okay. If you need to cry, that's okay. Go ahead and cry. I will be here. I'll just hold you. I'm not gonna try to fix you and tell you it's okay, it's gonna get better. No, it was just cry. I will hold you through it. And there were days that he would see me holding it in, or I would get, I was maybe a little bit angry, or just like, when you're just like firing away, like, this little comments. He was like, do you need to cry today? Like, he would ask me at times, and I was like,
That's so sweet.
I do. And I would cry and I would reset, and then I was okay. So even like holding that hurt, because sometimes we try not to cry because we think that we're going to hurt the other person, but that's the complete opposite.
Right.
So if there's any husbands out there that have, just tell your wife. And sometimes we need to hear it. Just tell her, hey, honey, it's okay. If you need to cry, cry. I'll just hold you. And just hold her. That's all you have to do. Literally just hold her while she's breaking down. Cry as hard as she could. And then she's going to reset, and she's going to start to like, you're going to feel better after that hard cry.
Yeah.
And then also I would say cry in front of your wife. Like, let her know that you're human and that this is your child also, and that you have your moments of breaking down. Like, that doesn't mean that the husband has to be strong all the time
Right.
and not cry in front of his wife.
Right.
No, go ahead and cry. Let it out so that she can also see visually that you're also hurting, and she can also have the opportunity to support you as a husband, right?
And I think what also happened for my husband was so many people in his life reached out to him and said something similar happened. And he didn't realize how common it was. And he had a lot of comfort in his friends saying something similar happened. But I think the best part was everybody who said something similar happened went on to have a positive, uplifting story afterwards.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Yeah, because I feel like men don't get as much support as the mom does, even though they need it,
Right.
They just mask it, or they're just, looked at differently, I guess. And then what would you say is the best way for like friends and family, which we kind of touched on earlier, but what would you say is like a good way for friends and family or just outsiders to support a grieving mom? Like, what are some do's and don'ts?
I think the best thing you can do is ask, how can I support you? How can I help? Does it make you uncomfortable if we talk about this? Would you like to talk about it? And I think when people assume, that's when things go south.
Like when they assume that you do want to talk about it
Or
you
don't. Right. Like I have certain people in my life who have literally never brought it up again. And I will talk about my son all day, every day, right? Like even though it's sad, it brings you joy. It's your child.
Yeah.
And I think you're never going to get in trouble by asking.
That's true. That's
Ever.
a good point. So ask if you want to talk about it.
Yeah.
And maybe the answer is no that day, but at
Correct.
least they know, like, not today, but
Right.
I'll let you know when. And
Right.
at least you can let them know when it's okay to ask again.
Right.
Or yeah, that's a very good point. What would you say to a mom that might be going right now through a situation similar to yours? Like, what would you say to encourage her? Like, what if she's, deep in like grief right now? What would you say to her? Like, what would you say to try and help her? What advice can you give her?
Try all the things. There's no one right or wrong way to heal. You need to find what works for you and keep pursuing that.
Whatever that is.
Whatever that is. I think this notion of, well, we have to go to therapy, twice a week in order to feel better, like whatever you're pre-programmed to think, get it out of your head. Do what works for you and be unapologetic about it.
Yeah. But just as long as they're trying to heal, because I feel like maybe they
Correct.
don't know that is still possible.
Correct.
It's still possible to heal. It's still possible to feel like that happiness again.
And that's a great point. I like to assume everybody wants to heal. There are others that just want to never talk about it and suppress. And I think one of the things I learned in this type of therapy is secrets and suppression are what kills everything. It kills relationships. It kills your vibe. It kills your mood, your energy. And don't suppress.
Did you ever feel guilty or could you remember like the first time that you felt like joy again, or that you felt a little bit of happiness? Like, and did you feel guilty because you felt like happy?
No. And I remember vaguely thinking, why not? I don't think I felt guilty because I didn't do anything wrong, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I think some people stay in depression for years.
They do.
Others, try to live life. And I think it goes back to what I was mentioning about my husband and I. Like, we've both been through a lot of things, and you either pick up and move on or live with it or figure out how to live with it. If not, you're going to be behind the 8 ball forever.
Yeah. Yeah. Somebody said to me in one of the episodes, and now it has stayed with me. She said, "We don't move on from the situation; we move forward."
Correct.
I'm like, "Oh, okay."
Correct.
And it's so true. But and the reason I asked you that question is because I feel like there's almost like a misconception, and it may not even be from the person going through the grief, that we're not allowed to be happy, or we're supposed to be
Yes.
broken forever.
Yes.
Or we're not supposed to be happy. And even if you post a picture of you just
Yes.
smiling, they assume like, oh, she's not hurt, she's not grieving. Why is she not completely broken right now? And it's like, just that's not the reality.
Correct.
So, but I feel like there is a misconception that we're supposed to be broken forever.
Yes.
And maybe it's not even, like I said, maybe it's not even the mom itself that thinks that, but other people think it. And then you, as a mom going through it, then you're like, oh man, maybe I am supposed to not be happy, or maybe I'm not supposed to feel joy. And it's almost like a guilt begins to happen of like, well, I can't show happiness or I can't feel it because that's not okay.
Right.
And it's like, it's okay to who? To whom? Because I'm sure that God didn't intend for you not to never be happy again. God wants you to be happy. Your
Absolutely.
baby in heaven wants to look down and say, oh, yay, my mommy's
Absolutely.
happy. You're not looking down and be like, oh, she's not even crying. Why is she not crying about me? That's not like that.
No, not at all.
So they want you to be happy. Our little angels, our kids, if they're looking down at us from heaven, they want us to be happy. And it's okay. And I feel like that's one of the main things that, for me, I felt it strong. Like, I remember thinking, I'm never going to be able to laugh again. And somebody said, you're going to laugh when something's really happy. And then
Correct.
my 1.5-year-old son, Davin, at the time said something hilarious. And I started laughing, and I stopped myself, because I remember thinking, I was like, oh, wait, so soon, I'm not supposed to be laughing.
Right.
And my husband, Danny, as a matter of fact, said it. He's like, it's okay. You deserve
Yes.
to be happy. You
You do.
deserve it. Not that you have to, not that you deserve to be happy.
Yes.
And it's okay to laugh. And one of the things that was very big for me was, and this is something that it's one of the best tips that I can give anyone is, first of all, know that you deserve happiness again, but it doesn't just come by itself. You have to do something that brings you joy every day. If that's reading a book, if it's walking outside, if it's spending time with other children, if you have, or spending time with family members or your husband or sister, whoever, just do something that brings you joy every single day, even if it's for 5 minutes a day. Because eventually then your brain starts to get reprogrammed on feeling. And then once you do something that brings you joy, sit with that joy, like allow that feeling to so that you could enjoy it. It is
Yes.
what it is. It's just a little bit of joy. And then eventually our brain will reprogram, and then one day that joy is gonna be happiness. And then maybe it won't happen again. Maybe you won't feel happiness again for another month, but then something else will bring you happiness. And then eventually you start to reprogram yourself to be able to be happy again. And the other thing I would say, another huge tip for me at least, is I've always tried to remember Dex with happiness. Like, I didn't want to remember him with sadness, because it is what it is. I'm going to think of him and about him
Of course.
the rest of my life. So I want to think of him with happiness, whatever little bit of happiness that is, whether it was a kick in my belly or holding him for a few minutes. Just think of them, try to make it a goal to think of them with happiness. So that, and that's not to say that some days you're gonna think of them and you're gonna cry, because I sure do, but it's, you make it a goal, and then one day you do think of them and you
Right.
smile, and it's such a beautiful feeling
Yeah.
knowing that they're in heaven. I'm gonna see you one day, and for now, I can think of you and not feel sadness. Because then the rest of our lives, we're gonna think of this person and we're gonna be sad.
Yeah.
And that's not the goal. The goal is to think of them with happiness, of the happy moments. Maybe not of the moments when they pass, but there are other moments before that that we can think of, at least even if it's one moment that we can think of that would bring a smile to our hearts.
No, absolutely. And I think one of the first things that I did was I found an online retailer, and I went and made his name, and I got a bracelet. And I put it on, and I've never taken it off. And the first like month, I couldn't look at my wrist because you just wanted to cry. But that was part of my process. I wasn't going to
And that's okay too.
correct.
You know, it's okay too. I just,
Yes.
well, go ahead.
No. I think you need to find what heals you. And I think you just need to be very open as long as you are healing.
Yeah. And make it a point that you to
Yes.
want to heal. I think
Yes.
that everything starts with the want, right? Mm-hmm. We can, if you want to do something, just the want has to be there, because that's like that initial
Correct.
like force that starts to move the car
Right.
forward.
And I think for friends and family, they have to realize this is your journey to go on. It's not theirs. No matter if they're the perfect parent or the perfect spouse, this is something you have to go through on your own, just like it's something they have to go through on their own. Because they're also grieving too.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. All right, so the tips for the mom. I think we started talking about it and then we just we digressed. So what would you say to a mom that's currently grieving? Like what are some words of like hope that you can give her?
I think you need to be unapologetic with what you need in order to move forward. You're not hurting anybody's feelings. You don't need to tiptoe around anything. And there is light on the other side. There really is.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much, Ashley. And thank you for being so open and for
course.
sharing yours and James's story. And
Thank you for having me.
you're very welcome. And I hope that we can really like reach moms and that somebody can connect with your story. If they want to connect, if anybody watching wants to connect with you directly, where can they reach you?
Instagram, Ashley Aragi.
How do you spell it?
Ash-
That's not like a Perez, you know?
no. ASHLEY AIRAGHI.
Okay. And for anybody watching, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and if you know of a mom that may be grieving, please send her this video so that she can have some hope, and hopefully she can connect with either my story or Ashley's story, so that we can help her know that hope is possible and happiness is possible even after the loss of a child. Thank you so much.